Hello everybody. Hello everybody. This is Chase Boutique. I'm here with Oracle Podcast. How's everybody doing? Hooey! I'm recording this on Sunday, June 15th. This is the forecast through the 16th through the 22nd. Tapping in here, seeing how we're doing. How we doing? Let's see. It's become pretty darn it's summer here in the high des. It's pretty lovely. I've been able to go out this week a few times and it's been really great. I've had some fun events that were like summer nights. It's kind of like when you're in the desert, you kind of dread the summer because it's just so hot and oppressive. But this week I was able to do some stuff at night and it was really nice. Kind of been thinking about just in general wanting to enjoy myself more. I'm a Virgo and I tend to work a lot and that's always my first priority, Virgos and Capricorns, we fit into the old paradigm pretty well, but even though I never did, but if I'm really passionate about something, I like to work. It makes me happy, but it's really that, Jupiter coming into Cancer energy, which is very much about, the inner temple and really starting to understand what nourishes us and giving ourselves that. It's funny because this last week I was really meditating on Jupiter going into Cancer and what that meant energetically for myself, because astrology is happening through us, not to us, right? So we are astrology. We are the astrology. We are Earth. We are on Earth. We are astrology. So as conscious beings, these energies are happening through us. So I like to pay attention to what's awakening within me. And it's been a real theme of this wildness piece that has always been there for me, but it's kind of cracking open to new degrees. And through that process, really the pleasure and the beauty and the restorative power of Mother Earth and this planet in general. It's just so funny because it's this planet is so Venusian. I mean, the archetype of Venus is just enjoying oneself, and it's such a beautiful planet, and it's meant to be enjoyed. And it's just so funny. I found one of my friends posted, I don't know who posted, but it was one of these meme things of these two aliens being you want to hear something crazy? And he's what? And he's do you know that the Earth itself is $300 trillion in debt? And they're what? How? In debt to who? It's it's just so silly. The paradigm that we have created. And it's just we don't need, there's no debt. And these debts, who pays the price? We pay the price. The debt is our deficit, our health, our joy, our life, and giving it all to some sort of machine culture that is systematically creating systems of control for things and governments and systems to work in this one way that's for what? And it's amazing. We're all starting to wake up out of that. We're waking up. I call it a collective nightmare. You can call it the rat race. You can call it, there's a beauty, of course, on this earth, but man, have we been conditioned deep into the pain body of this planet, of the things that are wrong and the fear and the contraction and the control and the, what could go wrong, not feeling safe, and shifting out of that, and starting to really kind of be, present. It's funny because it's so much of new age stuff or even just meditative stuff. It's this idea around presence, and even in a lot of spiritual circles and stuff, it's this is what you should do. This is what you should do to be this way. And it's no, we do this so we're more free. We do this because it feels good. We don't do it to get somewhere, to be a certain thing. We do it because it's a release, because it's allowing us to open. It's moving into the receptive mindset, the receptive space, energetic space. So, yeah, that's kind of what I've been feeling. And just, I kind of also had this, I also had this kind of realization this week around nourishment. I've been going deep into like the energetics of Cancer. We get, and we have all kinds of different ideas about what Cancer is and what it means, and the signs. And there's like superficial and there's deeper ones, but how it lives inside of us is really the question. If you really want to get real with astrology, how is this living inside of you? So, where is your Cancer? Do you have any planets in it? And just flowing with the transits of the now, Jupiter going into Cancer, which is ultimately the mother. And, the sign of nurturance and of life and of protecting life and caring for life. Sometimes, it goes underground. It's interesting because, in the old paradigm, these signs of Cancer and Capricorn, in their darker aspects, like the dark feminine and the dark masculine, in their darker aspects, it's interesting because, you see a lot of Capricorns and Cancers together sometimes. And traditionally Capricorn is a sign ruled by Saturn. It's very much about structure and discipline and order and putting in hard work and achievement and building things. It's an earth sign. And then Cancer is the sign of the mother and the home and nurturing and nourishment and deep emotional connection. And it's funny though, because then both of them kind of, there's an opposing sign, they always share a thread. And, in this paradigm where we've kind of been lost in this collective nightmare, we've been operating really kind of in the darker aspects of Cancer, which do tend to have a lot of energetics around control, to keep things safe. It's that same idea of Capricorn, which rules hierarchies and systems, but they both kind of operate on that same wavelength of like, to keep things safe, you need to keep them under control. And fundamental, and they're both high achievers, and they both really, really do protect things. But that's the darker energy of them both, is when they're in both and not in a place of deeper trust in life and in wildness and in just the natural cycles, when they're in their higher expressions. So I think we've been operating on this planet in a lot of like darker energetics of Cancer. It's funny, even the sign of Cancer I've thought about this a lot too, that the sign of Cancer has the name Cancer, right? And Cancer itself, the thing that kills you inside of your body. I heard somebody the other day say it was a parasite, and I thought that was so interesting, because it's a dark energy that festers inside, that's created from, it can be environmental conditions, it can be genetic, or it can be emotional. Everything starts energetically, a lot of times through suppression, and that limitation, when we suppress, we're holding things in, we're controlling, we're not allowing things out. We're not allowing them to live and breathe and kind of express themselves in certain ways, because mostly of fear. And it's interesting because I think, that's the darker aspect of the sign Cancer. And it's the dark feminine, and it's related, it's cancerous. And it also, Cancer, and its darker aspects it's very able to do a lot of emotional manipulation. It really does a lot of work through manipulating, through guilt and shame, and very, very, very self-oriented, very hard to see outside of itself or allow itself to be vulnerable. The higher aspects, which is where we're moving into in this era, it's really about this kind of generation of life and the support and generation of life and the reverence of life and a deep receptivity. which with receptivity, you have to be vulnerable, So it's interesting because Cancer, it has its Cancer shell. It likes its home. It likes to be kept safe, likes to keep other things safe. But sometimes, in order to truly receive, you have to open, and be open to the flow, which requires there be change and the wildness. And so I think, Capricorn and Cancer in this old paradigm, they, traditionally the masculine and the feminine, they were kind of codependent, and they went into their darker aspects. And as we're moving into the age of Aquarius, it's aligning oneself and starting to trust in your own nature and nature itself and the rise of sovereignty. So when you start to really trust in Mother Nature on a deep level, and you start to trust your own nature and your own wildness, you don't need you don't need anything outside of yourself to tell you how to be. You start to operate from a place inside that is connected to your instincts, which is life, which is wildness, which is intuition. And you start to trust that on a very deep level. That's why Cancers are very intuitive. But the old paradigm, it was very used to manipulate and control others in order to stay safe, because it was a patriarchal world order and there was a lot of distortions. But in the new era, and as we're moving into this new era of kind of the new earth, honestly, it feels like it's being created right now. I feel like this Jupiter in Cancer is very flowering. It's a flowering energy. And it's really about deep worship of life. And the deep worship of life has a lot to do with the worship of the unknown and how things grow, and fostering environments to allow them to grow naturally, not needing to control how they grow. That's really the higher energetics of Cancer, and really giving back to oneself and deep, deep restoration. So, really moving out of that pain body, that collective pain body, and into the receptive body, the life body, which is about trusting. And through that process, to release that pain body, that constriction, that fear, and all that, we have to open ourselves to life, and the trust to trust in life. And what that looks like on the day-to-day, so many of us have been in, it's easier for me to say I live out in the country, and I'm just staring out the window right now. But I know a lot of people listening, you have day-to-day lives, you have schools and kids, and yes, we've all designed our lives in certain ways, or there's schedules and there's things, and it's hard to kind of allow for space for the unknown, for the intuitive. But it's starting to make space for that in your life. Not everything has to be measured and controlled to be safe. The truly safest place is to be in tune with yourself and your own internal guidance, which is really spirit and all your guides, God, the universe moving through you, that's guiding you. That is the safest place to be. So it's funny because people think that that's chaotic, to not have a total plan, or to move out, to veer outside of the norm, right? But it's actually where Mother Nature, our nature, is taking us. And so when I see Jupiter in Cancer, I see us tuning into that true gestation of life. Maybe think of a baby in a mother's womb. It's growing, it's changing, right? Everything is changing all of the time. Can we allow it? That is the worship of life. And then to also simultaneously truly take in and let ourselves be nourished and restored by the earth itself, because this earth is a planet of healing. It's an incredibly healing place. It's meant to be seen and felt in that vibration. And it's only going to become that if we see that, and we see it in ourselves, and we begin to allow it. So that's kind of where I'm seeing this inner temple and also the energetics of Cancer and Jupiter and Cancer moving forward, and how it's also connected to wildness, on a deep and fundamental level. It's exciting. It's exciting. What else? Okay, the other thing that I've noticed this week, and that's been, just is happening, is that, well, this last week we had a lot of solar flares. You can't predict solar flares. That's just is what it is. But solar flares have been, I'm just checking the solar flare. I have the app. Oh, here, I gotta let it load. Oh shit. No. Okay, yeah, it's the solar flares are going off right now, and it's kind of wild because it's you can kind of feel it too, like just energetically, and I think it has, this, we're all connected. It's not like all this is happening in a vacuum, right? Like, so solar flares, the sun is connected to our consciousness here on Earth. Like, the universe is all connected, right? So one could say the sun is helping to activate the consciousness of planet Earth. Who knows how it's all working out? Our linear brains, we're moving out of linear time though. But whatever's going on with the sun, what is happening with the solar flares is that it's literally bringing more light. It literally is the sun having a geomagnetic flare, and that flare, and they're bigger than they've ever have been, especially at this time in history. And it might just be because of where consciousness is at. We're noticing them, and therefore there they are. We have tools to measure them, right? But apparently they're the highest they've ever been in history, and it's giving it. What it does is that it brings more light to the planet, and it messes with the electricity. So like these power outages and like Spain not having power for a day, and then we are electricity. So it upgrades our systems. It brings more light to our systems, our consciousness, and when that happens, it's expansion. And when that happens, what you are naturally doing, is when you bring more light to something, which is the process of expansion, the spiral, wildness, universal consciousness, always moving, is that you are literally illuminating darkness. And when you illuminate darkness, you must deal with that. So that's why I do shadow work too, because that's what shadow work is. Shadow work is light work. It's bringing light to darkness. And so we're getting a lot of that's currently happening on many levels. So that's happening alongside what I've been seeing energetically just on the planet, is this Jupiter going into Aries. And sorry, not Jupiter going into Aries. I'm having technical issues right here. Whatever. Saturn going into Aries. So Saturn going into Aries, you can just feel it, man. It's like conflict is in the air. And, I want to just give some clarification on Aries, because I think Aries gets a bad rap, and people either love or hate Aries. It's kind of like Scorpios or something. I have an Aries moon. I have Mars on my ascendant. My sister's an Aries. I have strong Aries energy. I love Aries personally. I love Aries. Because it's not about conflict, okay? So just remember, okay, Saturn is the planet that we need to put our work into. It's like it's materiality, but it also is like where we need to focus to mature. What we're collectively building, what we're grounding, what is being materialized, I guess you could say, but also where we're focused, where we're having discipline, and I think it's amazing because what Saturn is forcing us to do. So Aries is not just about conflict. What it's really about is it's about confrontation. And it's so funny because I've been doing this work for so long, and with like shadow work and stuff, and like it's the archetype of the warrior and the spiritual warrior. You cannot grow into the archetype of the warrior or the spiritual warrior without confrontation. Confrontation is what moves energy. It's what releases. It's what brings light. So solar flares are bringing light to darkness. It's confronting things. It's confrontation, right? It's heat. And it's funny, I was telling this story, I said it in one of my reels or something, but I was just saying how I was at the gym and I was like walking past the news, which is just insane this week. And I remember just like feeling the energy, and instead of like feeling all this fear, I just felt like this intense release, because it just feels like the pain body and the fear body, especially since COVID on the planet, has been so intense. And Saturn in Aries is just like giving us that true opportunity to really let go, confront a lot of these fears, let them out. And through confrontation and through conflict, a lot of times there is conflict, there is a release of energy, and that's how things move. And so the building of the new earth and the creation of the new earth is not going to happen as stagnant waters. It's going to happen through confrontation. And it's funny because we want peace. Of course, we all want peace. And that is Venusian, that is Cancer, that is that real appreciation of Mother Earth. But if we aren't dealing with the underlying truths of our being and our existence and our consciousness, the things that are suppressed, we're not really feeling peace. And to really truly feel peace is you have to confront those things, let them out, and let them move. That's how you evolve quickly. It takes a lot of humility, and you have to work through your ego, because the ego wants to keep itself safe, hold those things underground, not get wrapped up. But the confrontation is what actually moves energy. So it's kind of this idea of the Saturn in Aries, as well as it's like standing up and showing up. That I was out to dinner with my mom this weekend, and there was the No Kings protests, and Palm Springs was nutty. It was wild, man. It was cool. It was like, wow, people are standing up. I'm pretty like I'm a spiritual guide, and I look at the energetics, so I'm not really invested in politics. I'm two sides of the same bird for me, but in terms of like seeing people actually, humans and the people rising up and standing up for themselves is pretty damn fucking cool. And that's what I see. That's the age of Aquarius. And that's also Saturn in Aries. And Also I just wanted to say this energy of the no kings stuff. I thought it was really interesting as an astrologer, and as to look at it symbolically. As the age of Aquarius is moving forward, we're kind of moving beyond. We really are moving. It's the end of tribalism. It's the end of hierarchies. It's an era of more collaboration, which also true community, and sovereignty. And true community is when sovereign individuals are able to come together and choose one another. Tribalism is when a group sticks together out of fear. So it's interesting because the age of Aquarius and Aquarius is very much about humanity, but it's about the honoring of individuals and the original frequency of each and every person, outside of boxes and systems of control, which is very much the end of hierarchy. So the no kings thing, to me, it felt like the end, kind of like these hierarchies of control are just starting to kind of topple. To me, it's not as much about an attack on the masculine, and if people are seeing it that way, I think that's unfortunate, because we need the sacred masculine. We need strong men on this planet. The feminine needs it as its counterpart, but it needs to be it needs to be independent, and non-codependent, interdependent, and whole in of itself. But that sacred masculine, man, it's such a gift. It's such a holy, beautiful gift to see men in their true sacred masculine energy, and their manhood, and protectors, and with not a lot to prove, but having that deep kind of knowing of themselves as a man. And it's men have felt like they're in crisis, and the masculinity's been in crisis, but I think it's been these false ideas that are very rooted in false power dynamics of needing to have power over versus true power that comes from within, and not needing to have power over anyone. And from that process, you kind of really find out who you are. You find out who you are, and you don't need to prove anything, if that makes sense. So it's a journey we're all on right now, but no hate to the beautiful men of this earth. I love me some man. I do. I love me a beautiful man. I do. The other thing that is going on, this I wanted to just bring up, that was kind of like screaming to me when I was looking at the chart of this week, was Pluto trining Uranus. And Pluto, the Lord of transformation, death and rebirth, no small thing, the shadow, fear, deep fear, also deep release of that fear, constriction and contraction, and complete and utter release of that, needing to have power over versus power from within. All of that is Plutonic energy. Uranus, the great awakener, that which electrifies, brings light to, brings energy to, brings more authentic realness to, not needing to prove anything. The great rebel, the great inventor, the idea person, way beyond its time. That's the Uranus energy. Those two combined or trining each other, wow, it's cool, man. It's like transformational energetics. It's radical evolution, a time of quantum leaping, letting go of old identities. And honestly, it's like finding comfort in chaos and crisis. I've had a series of clients, and it's really funny because Pluto and Uranus, they had a period where they were conjunct, which was not going to happen for a very long time. Well, no, it'll happen in like 60 years again, I guess. Yeah, something like that. But Uranus takes 85 years to go around the zodiac. Pluto takes 285 years, so they don't meet very often. Guess when they met? Guess when the last time that they met, meaning conjunct, blending, next to? 1968, baby. What happened in the 1960s? 66, I think it was like 66 through 70, they were like really close. What happened during that time? Massive awakening. transcendental awakening, quantum leaping in consciousness, psychedelics, baby, which really, is all about getting to know yourself better and understanding reality on a deeper level. If you don't abuse them and you use them for true self-inquiry, man, can they be great tools of transformation. And, a lot of my clients and friends are, not pirating, but like working to establish new channels of psychedelic awareness, and it's growing. So it's that breaking open. That's what psychedelics do. They break open your perception. They really help kind of through ego deaths to reconfigure your identity, all of this stuff, quantum leaping, letting go of old identities. Psychedelics really help you do that. And then finding comfort, like I said, comfort in chaos and riding these waves of unknown energy and beginning to trust on a deeper level. But yeah, so Pluto trining Uranus at this time is like, okay, we got this extra little boost, baby, of like breakthrough. It's like breakthrough, man. It's powerful. The other thing that's happening today, actually, is Pluto is opposing Lilith. They're going to be opposing each other this week. Sorry, not Pluto. I meant to say Venus. Venus opposing Lilith. It's funny because Venus is like the divine feminine, the goddessa, the abundant earthly creatrix of pleasure and beauty, and Lilith is like that wild spirit behind Mother Nature, if that makes sense. That kind of pulsing wildness that's kind of raw and super sexual, unapologetic, really free, not afraid. So those two opposing are like, it's almost like they're finding their groove, I'd say. Primal and peaceful. Finding some dance. Anyway, that's my astrology for the week. I love you guys, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.